Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. Now this video is deadly serious. I'm not going to be swearing during it like I usually do, and I'm going to try and be as professional as possible because this is something that I really feel strongly about. Now I'm at the age where I'm not too young so that people won't listen to us, but I'm not too old to forget what it's like to be a kid and to go through school. Now as a disclaimer, I haven't actually ever been in an academy school. The schools that I went to, they were firm but fair. You know, I got a good education from them. I'm in university now, but I haven't actually been to an academy school. However, there is one near me, and there's a lot of stories that I hear coming from that, and every time I hear something about it, it makes us so angry. Now, I know all academy schools are not the same, and obviously I know this video is titled Why Academy Schools Should Be Banned. I'm not trying to say they should be all banned, but because they have the freedom to make up all these rules and to change how they are run, a lot of them are just incredibly unnecessarily strict, and that's kind of the point of this video. I'm trying to say that that should not be allowed, that should be banned, that they should not be allowed to make them as strict as what some of them are. And obviously this does apply to normal schools as well, because obviously a lot of normal schools are really strict as well, but because with obviously the freedom that academy schools have, a lot of this does apply to them. Now first off, let's just imagine that you're, say, a 14-year-old kid, you live in a working class household, your parents have been brought up with a very rough background, because of that you haven't had the best upbringing because they've taken parenting aspects from their parents. And, you know, say you've got brothers and sisters, it's a working class household, your parents are just out trying to make money, and they haven't got the time to give you the best parenting and upbringing. Now, let's just imagine you're starting your first day at a new school, and this new school is incredibly strict, and you've read the uniform policies, and you've arrived there on your first day. Now, I'm just going to insert a clip from a YouTube video here.
So what, we've got to go out and buy another pair of shoes?
Yes,
Where in this uniform policy that didn't get sent to us, did this include a pair of leather shoes? I'm Mr. Hopper, I'm the one that was speaking to you the other last night, and I'm absolutely disgusted.
So let's imagine you're that kid, you've turned up at school and you've been refused to enter because your shoes aren't plain black leather. First of all, what that's going to do is that's going to have a negative effect on you as a kid, because you're going to be put in a state of discomfort. Instead of worrying about your learning, you're going to be worrying about, is your top button done? How do I present myself? And not only is it going to have a negative impact on the reason why the kid's gone there in the first place to learn, it's also going to have a negative impact on the whole household. Because assuming that, you know, this kid's from a working class household, like I mentioned before, the parents are then going to have to fork out on more shoes, which they just don't need, and they can't afford to be spending that money on plain black leather shoes, which, you know, I don't know how much they cost, but I'm assuming that they're not cheap. So straight away, without even entering the classroom, the strict policies of the school has already had a negative impact on the kid and the whole household. The whole household is probably going to be angry, there's going to be arguing, all because of the school. Just as a side note, I haven't actually got a problem with school uniform just in general, because it actually puts everyone on the same plane of field, and it eradicates bullying. Because say if you're, you know, wearing clothes which are scruffy compared to someone else's, or you express your identity in a different way, school uniform, you know, stops people from being able to take the mick out of you because of that. But excessively strict uniform policies are not going to have any advantage whatsoever. I mean, you hear stories every year of kids not being allowed to wear shorts on some of the hottest days in the summer, and it's just absolutely absurd. All that is going to do is distract them from the learning, because they're going to be too hot, they're going to be restless, and they're not going to be able to concentrate, right? There's absolutely no problem with allowing them to wear shorts if it's a hot day, and whoever is deciding that they can't, quite frankly, needs to get their brain looked at. Some of these uniform policies are literally on the verge of breaching human rights. They literally are. I don't know how in this day and age that they are allowed. So going back to what I was saying, imagine you're this kid and you've now made your way through the excessively strict uniform policies, and you've just entered your first lesson. Now this is where the teaching comes into it. Now I'm not trying to have a go at all teachers here for this. Obviously some are naturally strict, but if we imagine that this is an academy school and it's got an incredibly strict head or an incredibly strict person that's running it, that is then not only going to have a negative impact on the kids, but a negative impact on the teachers as well. Because the teachers are going to be forced to go along with these strict rules. They're not going to be allowed to be themselves, basically. If they want to make certain connection with the kids, if they want to have a sense of humour with the kids, if they want to be a little bit more lenient, they're not allowed to. Now, a lot of these teachers will probably only be there because it's a job and they need a job. Obviously, some of them might actually agree with this and they'll be strict. Just in general, they need to get themselves looked at. But some of them will be forced under these rules by the boss or whoever, and it's going to make them angry. Now, I'm going to insert another clip here from YouTube that literally just shows a teacher shouting at some kids for what seems like no reason.
What's so funny?
Why are you yelling?
Because I like to yell!
Okay.
Okay? Okay, what?
What's wrong with asking to see our test?
Like that? Does that work for you? Does that work for you? Does that work for you? Answer my question!
Yeah.
Good.
Now, I know that this is an extreme version of just what I'm talking about in general, but to me, in that video, it seems like the teacher is literally just using the kids as a way to let his anger out. Now, I don't know whether he's angry at something that the kids have done, whether it's just pressure with his job, whether it's personal issues, or whether it is actually something to do with the way that the school's run. But either way, that is completely out of order, and all that he is doing there is directing his anger straight into the person that he's having a go at. He is going to get absolutely nowhere by doing that. The student is not going to comply to whatever he's trying to get them to do, because that student is now absolutely angry and frustrated at how they've been treated. They're not going to show him any respect. And now they're distracted with trying to deal with their anger, trying to get their anger out. Now, if they decided to retaliate at the teacher, they're going to get into a lot of trouble for doing that. If they decided to retaliate to the school, they're just going to get slammed by the school, especially if it's an academy school with an incredibly strict head. So what do? Well, maybe they could talk to one of their friends. I mean, that's if their friends would show them any kind of sympathy. And even if they did, they still can't do anything about it because they're still in the same boat. They're still kids. No one's really going to listen to them. Maybe they could go home and try and let their anger out at their parents. Their parents are probably just going to tell them to get on with it. So then what do? Well, some people will probably listen to music or watch TV or draw to try and calm themselves down. But some people are going to react to it in a completely different way. Some people are going to react to it by bullying other students, letting their anger out on other students. They're going to react to it by going out on the streets, graffitiing, tagging, vandalising things, and all that is going to get them into more trouble. That's going to get them into trouble with the police, and it is generally going to lead them on a really bad track, a really bad chain of events, and in the worst case scenario, they turn into a criminal. And that is genuinely, in my opinion, how you get bad members of society. I know obviously a lot of it is due to their upbringing in the household, and if they've, had bad experiences in the household, but a lot of it is generally to do with bad experiences in school. And if they are in a rough household, a household which has bad parents, they're not being treated well, they've got problems at home, they should be able to go to school and they should be able to enjoy themselves at school. They should be able to get help there. If they're misbehaving because they've got problems at home, the school should not be slamming them for that. They should not be giving them detentions, should not be shouting at them. They should be trying to sympathise with them for that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of your upbringing is spent in school. It's spent in education. And if you're getting a bad experience there, that's nearly as bad as having a bad upbringing through parenting. So you're probably wondering now, well, how do you think schools should react to pupils that are misbehaving and not obeying the school rules? Well, the answer is they need to be firm but fair. In all of my lessons throughout school, the ones which had the least disruption were always the ones which were led by firm but fair teachers. So this means doing everything with a level of seriousness and authority, but not being unnecessarily strict, and instead actually showing some level of sympathy towards the students. And another really important aspect that needs to be done straight away by the teachers, and that will get them a load of respect, is actually making a connection with the students. Now, I'm in university now, and if I start a new module with a lecturer that I've never had before, a lot of the time they will actually make a point of swearing in their first introduction. Now, I mean swearing as in comedically, not because they're angry, But what this does is this just forms a direct connection with you, because you can look at them and think, you know what, they're actually the same as me. Now, I'm not saying obviously try and do this in primary schools or secondary schools, maybe high school or sixth form, although it will probably be frowned upon. But the teachers do need to make some sort of connection, whether that's through comedy or whether it's through just something about their personality, which, the kids can connect to. Whatever it is, it just needs to be done because it will gain them so much respect. Obviously it does need to be done with a level of seriousness and authority so that the kids don't just think, oh, he's just some sort of clown or idiot. Now, if that doesn't work and you've still got a kid or a few kids who are misbehaving and constantly disrupting lessons, what you need to do then is you need to quietly take them outside and you just basically need to ask them, like, what's wrong, why they're doing that, and try and show some sympathy towards them. And therefore you should get a level of mutual respect. And once that's done, then you can start to say, well, this isn't actually how you should be doing this. You can start to tell them what they're doing wrong, and they might listen to you more as opposed to you just going out there and shouting at them. And again, when you're trying to tell them what they're doing which isn't right, try and again link that with something which they're going to be able to connect to, like, jobs in the future or something like that. Maybe even lie and just say that you used to be like that and you know exactly how they feel, but at that age you just don't realise how important, education is. Now, if that doesn't work, then the level of strictness does need to gradually increase, and, if they're still constantly being a problem, then you need to get other people involved, or they need to go somewhere else, like put them in a special school or some sort of youth rehab if that exists. But throughout all of this, you need to remain firm but fair and just restrain from simply just shouting at them, because it's going to get you nowhere. The only time that shouting would ever work is probably if you're talking to a kid that actually really does care about their future, because then they're probably going to turn that anger into motivation. Now, I know everyone's different, but this is generally how I think students should be treated from just my personal experience in school and from what I've seen and how I feel about things. The most recent time that anything like this happened to me was actually in sixth form. One of my teachers there, that was actually overall a really good teacher, I did really well on the subject. She was firm but fair, but one day I did actually, I did something wrong. It was mostly my fault, even though some of it was her fault as well. But I got absolutely shouted at. And I think at one point I got threatened to be kicked out of sixth form, and for a while after that I lost a lot of respect for her. I had so much respect for her, and then just because she shouted and lost it that one time, I lost a hell of a lot of respect. It did eventually come back, but it took a while. So to sum up this rant, I'm just basically saying that academy schools need to have the power taken from them, which allows them to make up extreme rules. I'm not obviously trying to say that all academy schools need to be knocked down and all that stuff, but it just needs to be a ban on them being allowed to just make up really just unnecessarily strict rules which are not going to improve a kid's education. So I don't know, maybe there needs to be some sort of actual law put into place, like a firm but fair law. Or, I don't know, I think probably instead of focusing so much on what students can achieve there, how great exam results are and all that sort of stuff, schools should actually be focusing on how they can connect students with their learning and how it can inspire them to learn, rather than saying, oh yeah, we've got such and such, so many A stars and that. That doesn't show how you go about that. If you say, if you try and focus on connecting kids with learning, then the good grades should naturally come from that. But there just does seriously need to be a change in just the UK education system in general. There's just aspects which need to be looked at in the 21st century that are just not right for this day and age. Now, I know this video might seem really pointless because it's probably not going to do anything, and a lot of people probably won't even agree with us, but I feel for this so strongly that I just thought, it's worth making just to see if things do get changed. If anyone knows any campaigns on like change.org which is similar to this, then let me know, you know, put them in the comments, and then if people want to, you know, they can sign them. Or if none of that does exist, then let me know if I should actually try and create a change.org campaign, if obviously a lot of people would agree with us, and try and get something done, because I just, there's an academy school near me, and just every single time I hear something from there, I feel so sorry for whoever has to go to that. I'm lucky because I didn't have to go to like an extremely strict school, but some people, they just have to, and they don't have a choice, and it's going to mess up their life. It really is. Obviously, again, I know all academy schools aren't like the one that's near me, but the one that's near me, I want it shut down. I do not want that in my area where I live. Now, if you do agree with this video, please remember to show your support for it by liking it and sharing it. And yeah, just basically, I hope you did agree with what I was saying, and thanks for listening even if you didn't.